Hello, and here's another video about the three super zoom lenses that we're testing. I've come outside to do a test, so we'll have some real world examples for you to see. I wanted to do this video outside, so there was no complaints about being a not fair test because it was indoors regarding the testing of the lenses. So I'll get some examples for you and just watch them. Thank you. Hello everyone, and welcome to one of my final reviews on these lenses that I've been testing. The 150 to 600 focal length on both the Sport, Contemporary and Tamron. I just want to show you a table that shows you when the actual apertures change. Generally 387mm 5.6, 320mm on the Sport, 427mm on the actual Tamron. Keep in mind that the actual Canon 100 to 400, which I have also reviewed, changes its focal length from 312 at f5 to 5.6 at 400mm. It isn't quite 400mm though, it is closer to 383mm. Anyway, it's certainly a good lens to have. The Sports lens has 2 FLD low dispersion with performance similar to fluorite, and 3 SLD special low dispersion glass elements versus 1 FLD and 3 SLD glass elements in the Contemporary, and obviously the Tamron has its own equivalent. So that's the Contemporary. It's 1 kilogram lighter, has custom modes as well, just like Sport. My opinion, image quality is very similar. So you would not be disappointed with either of those two lenses. The Tamron is extremely nice. I like the actual tripod collar. No major issues with it. The only thing I would say about it is it's a little bit soft at the long end, but it's not that huge that you would be disappointed with this lens. So to the examples, I've got some various examples to show you here, so let's get started. So 150mm, it's quite nice, quite sharp. Let's zoom in. Now it's f8 800 ISO, shutter speed between 1000 and 1200. Zoom into 100%, looks nice and sharp. No major problems there. Let's zoom into 200% for any of you pixel peepers out there. Does lose a little bit of detail, but that is to be expected at 200%. Let's have a look at the Sport at 300mm. Again, it's quite nice, quite sharp. Let's zoom in at 50%. Seems fine, quite sharp. 66%, it's nice and sharp. 100%, no major problem there. 200%, so you pixel peepers can have a look. Loses a bit of detail, but again, it's to be expected when you zoom in that much. Right, this one is 400mm, quite sharp. Let's zoom in. 50%, still seems sharp to me. 66%, reasonably sharp still. You start to lose a bit of detail at 100%, and let's have a look at 200%. You seem to lose a bit of detail there, but again you are zooming in at 200%. Let's have a look at 500mm. Again, it looks nice and sharp. Let's zoom in. 50% looks fine, quite sharp, no major issues. 66% seems to be losing a little bit of detail, but it isn't too bad. 100% we do seem to lose detail, but it's still usable. Zoom in at 200%. Obviously it does get a bit bad, but then you are zooming in significantly. And guys, this is on a 7D crop factor, so at 600mm you're actually at 960mm. Not a bad zoom range. So let's look at it at 600 millimeters. Seems nice and sharp. Zoom in. 50%, it looks nice. 66%, still looks decent. He's losing a bit of detail up here, but it's not too bad. 100%, you are starting to lose a bit of detail, but at those ranges, it's not too bad. For pixel peepers, let's go in at 200%. Obviously, you lose quite a bit of detail when you start zooming in that far, but it is quite usable and quite nice. Incidentally, guys, what you need to remember is when you buy the Sigma sports lens, you need to adjust it using the Sigma dock, because it will focus in the upper part of your image rather than in the middle. So remember to customize and update the firmware when you get that lens, because it will need some modifications to its firmware when you get it, and then hopefully you won't have any problems with focusing in the center. Okay, let's have a look at a few more images at 600 millimeters. Here's a bus stop. Let's zoom in. Looks quite nice. 50%. Looks really nice still. Losing a bit of detail, but up here it's quite sharp. And going to 100%. We seem to be seeing a bit of grain, but no major problems there. Another one at 600 millimeters. Here I try to get something quite close. Let's zoom in there. 50%, 66%, 100%. We do start to lose a bit of detail here, but again we are zooming in at 960 millimeters. So I'll look another one. Here I try to get a picture that I noticed I was having problems because there was a hanging line hanging over it, and it tried to focus on that, and that's due to the fact that it needs to be customized using the Sigma dock. So let's zoom in. 50% looks quite nice. 66% still nice. 100% we're still getting good detail on there, and 200% for you pixel peepers. And there you go. Doesn't look too bad. So let's have a look at the contemporary at 150 millimeters. Now this is where this lens shines. It shines at anything at 150 to 200 millimeters. Definitely superior to the contemporary. So let's have a look. 50%, quite nice. 66%, still nice. 100%, losing a bit of detail, but that's to be expected. 200%, I'd say it's very similar to the Sport version, but it looks reasonable and usable, no major problems. So let's have a look at 300 millimeters. Let's zoom in. 50%, it looks decent. 66%, quite nice, still detail. 100%, still definitely usable, and I think it's quite nice still. 200% for your pixel peepers out there, and it had lost some detail there, but that's to be expected zooming in that much. Right, we're at 400 millimeters in this one, so let's have a look and zoom in. Looks nice, no major issues with the quality of the image, and it does seem to retain good detail at 50%. We'll zoom in at 100%, sorry, 66%, still quite nice. 100%, I still think that's usable at 100%, and let's go into 200%, and obviously then you are starting to lose detail when you zoom in that much. Right, this is 500 millimeters on the contemporary. Let's zoom in. Still good detail retained at 500 millimeters. I think probably this is where the lens is at its best, 500 millimeters, and it looks pretty good detail wise at 50%. 66%, still quite decent at that focal length. 100%, I still think it's usable. Obviously it has lost some detail, and let's have a look at 200%. And yes, it certainly has lost detail at that sort of crop factor. But yes, you will lose detail at 200% anyway. So let's have a look at 600mm. So this is at 600mm. Let's zoom in and have a look at 50%. Looks nice. 66% looks okay. 100%, we are starting to lose a little bit of detail, but it's not quite as good at the long end compared to the sports, but it's not far off. You know, you need to make that decision, is it really worth spending the extra to get the sports? And at 200%, there you go. Okay, here's another image on the contemporary. Let's zoom in into this lamppost that I took a picture of. 50% still looks pretty good. 66% zoomed in. Definitely usable at 66%. 100%, I would say even at 100% you could use that. It's still quite sharp. And zoom in at 200%. And obviously you can start to see the image, but it's still pretty good, you know, not bad at all. So let's have a look at another image. Okay, this is another one on the contemporary, 600mm. Let's zoom in, have a look at the detail. 50%. One thing you need to keep in mind is when you're using a crop camera, you won't see much of the vignetting on these lenses, because you'll see more of that on the actual full frame lenses. You can remove that in Lightroom and Photoshop using lens correction, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem. Let's zoom in at 66% and 100%. So it's definitely usable still, even at 100%. And it's quite nice. Let's try 200. And there you go. Doesn't look too bad at 200%. Okay, here's another one on the contemporary. Just like the sport, let's zoom in. 50%. 66%. 100%. Still showing good detail. And let's go into 200%. It still looks very good. It resolves images very nicely. So we're finally at the Tamron at 150mm. So obviously let's have a look at 50%. It resolves good detail. 66%, still not bad. 100%, still resolving lots of detail here still. And 200%, obviously we start to lose detail at 200%. But I think at the lower focal lengths, the Tamron is still a good lens to use. So let's have a look at another one. This is at 300mm, so that's at 37%. Let's zoom in, 50%. Still resolves good detail at 300mm. 66% looks really good. 100% still shows good detail. And I'll look at 200%. Very similar to the Sigma Contemporary in its build, although I give slight edge to the Contemporary in its focusing and its quality. Okay, this image is at 400mm, 37% zoomed in. So let's zoom in a bit more at 50%. Good detail, no problems. 66% seems nice and sharp. 100% we do start to lose a bit of detail around the edges. That's the main difference between the Tamron and the Sigma. Basically the Sigma is a bit sharper around the edges, but as you can see it's still quite sharp in the middle. And 200%, very similar to what the Sigma is producing as well. So let's look at it at 500mm. Looks nice there, 37%. Zoom in at 50%. Looks quite nice. We do seem to be losing a bit of detail in the corners though. 66%. It looks fine in the middle, but again it's starting to get a bit worse in the edges. So let's zoom in again. 100%. Does seem to be getting a bit soft more in the edges. Even on a crop sensor you are getting a bit of softness on the edges, so I suspect on full frame it would even be worse. Let's go in at 200%, and obviously the result there, especially in the corners, is a lot more softer, but it's a bit sharper in the middle. So let's have a look at another image. 600mm. Let's zoom in. 50%. Looks quite nice. 66%. We're starting to zoom in, and we are starting to lose the detail around the edges. 100%. Don't look too bad. And 200%. And we do seem to lose detail. But it's to be expected. It is an older lens. So look at another image at 600mm. Let's zoom in. This is something I compared with the Contemporary not long ago. So let's have a look at it. 50%, still looks nice. 66%, 100%, still looks really nice. And 200%. It's very close to the Contemporary. I would say the Contemporary is a bit sharper, but they're still both good lenses, so I don't think you'd go wrong with either of them. Don't listen to people who may say the Tamron isn't a sharp lens. It's sharp, but it might not be quite as sharp as the Sigma ones. Okay, let's have a look at another image. Similar to what we've already looked at 33%, let's zoom in. 50%, still looks quite nice. 66%, 100%, again very similar to the Sigma, but still quite nice. 200%, obviously we start to lose a bit of detail, more so in the corners though. But it still is a nice lens. Okay, let's have a look. We've got one more image to look at. Here's the tiles again. Just wanted to show you similar images. Zoom in there at 50%. Looks nice. No problems there. 66%. Again, nice image. 100%. Nice. And 200%. That'll give you an idea of what it can do, even when you're cropping that much. The Sigma lenses seem to have the advantage over the Tamron by being slightly sharper and having the option of having a dedicated manual override button, as well as 3 distance limiters. You have 10 meters to infinity, 2.6 on this bar, and 2.8 to 10 meters, and full. You have optical stabilizations of mode 2 and mode 1. Mode 2 is for panning, mode 1 is for vertical and horizontal axis normal usage, and you can also set up 2 custom modes. You can basically update the firmware using the Sigma dock, which is only about £40 extra, and you can modify the limiter distances if you want to. You can make the focusing quicker for speed or fast or better accuracy. So it's up to you. Obviously there's a lock button. The lock button is probably better than the Tamron because it has a hard lock at 150mm, but a soft lock at I think it's 180, 200, 300, 400, 500 and 600mm. So it is more versatile than the Tamron, because the Tamron only locks at 150 and 400mm. And that's just the basic roundup of the images. I hope this little overview has been helpful. Personally, I think the Contemporary is probably the better of the 3 because it is sharper slightly than the Tamron, and it is 1 kilogram lighter than the Sigma Sport. If I was going to Africa taking photos, I'd probably want to take the Sigma Sport because you do have a lot of dust and environment that could get in the lens and could be an issue. However, for just general usage, I would recommend the Sigma Contemporary and also the Tamron, because the Tamron is still a good lens. The Sigma Contemporary and the Tamron 150 to 600 is the same price at present in the UK at £740. The Sigma Sport is £1,200. But all these lenses are fantastic quality. I would have no issue with using any of them. I just found the Sigma Sport to be a bit heavy for my personal uses, because there are a lot of professionals and a lot of people out there who go out with lenses and sometimes need to carry more than one camera, more than one lens, and this is possibly too heavy. To give you an example, is you could take the Contemporary with you and take a second camera and a wide angle lens for the same weight of this Sigma Sport, and obviously that is a bit more versatile because you can do landscapes with those other lenses, and then obviously you've still got your Contemporary to take your shots. So it's up to you what you want to do. I hope this wasn't too boring, and thank you for your time.